Hi guys, and welcome to the 14th episode of the Women in Nautica Podcast. And this is the last one for 2025. And what a roller coaster it has been. The 2025 conference is also behind us, and I can't believe it's already over. There was so much planning, so much organization, and then the day just passes by and you haven't even turned around or acknowledged that the event has already passed, but it was great. As you can imagine, the whole Mastrate experience is always so interesting, engaging, dynamic, and international. And my week was basically a week full of the Netherlands and its ups and downs. I arrived to Amsterdam on the 18th of November, actually the 17th, and I was greeted by a rainbow, which doesn't always or often happen in the Netherlands. As I was driving in my Uber to the hotel, there was a nice rainbow, and I said, okay, this is a good sign. This week is going to be great. And indeed it was. On the 17th, I was lucky enough to participate in Mastrate Partners Dinner, and I met several industry colleagues, but also made some new interesting contacts. It has been a great experience to also meet like-minded professionals, but also professionals who engage in similar activities like Women in Nautica and some of our project partners as well. While the 18th was filled with meetings, it was also a bit of mental prep for the big day. And that's how Wednesday came, the 19th of November, D-Day. And unfortunately, it didn't start with a rainbow like my arrival, because when I woke up, it was raining cats and dogs. As you can imagine, we had plenty of material, from banners to different name tags to our Women in Nautica magazines, and all this had to be carried to the Rai, of course. And we tried to call a Bolt or an Uber, but as it's usually the case, it gets very crowded on rainy days, and we didn't manage to get one. So we agreed, okay, we will have to take a public regular city taxi, however you want to name it. And on the reception, they told us it was 70 euros, 70, but we said, okay, we're already somewhat behind the schedule, so we should really get going. And taking that taxi was the only solution to that. So we continued with that. And the drive to there was relatively fast. And then when we came, I was getting to the driver 50 bill note and a 20 bill note. And he told me it's 17, not 70, and that the 70 euro ride is until the airport. So in the end, it ended up being a quite convenient ride. It's actually much cheaper than taking a Bolt or an Uber, and we ended up not being soaked up and being relatively on time, which was great. And since we entered Mastrate, actually the Rai Center, I went into trance. It was such an amazing day that it will be difficult to describe, but let's start, because that's what this podcast episode will be about, just to let you know how the conference was, to give you some insights, but also to let you know what we did, what we announced, and what are the plans for 2026. So basically the registration process started at 9:15 until 9:45, and in that period it was really nice to meet and greet with all the attendees, to have a cup of coffee and some cookies perhaps, and just enjoy the introductory process. Everyone was also a bit overwhelmed with the weather and the huge crowd, and in general finding the venue of the conference. And after a opening speech, which has been held by me and graciously enriched by Ana Čalić, the Vice President of the European boating industry, We started off with the first presentation by Kristina Blaskovic, who is the director of Tema, a Croatian company producer of electric engines. And this was such an insightful session. Kristina is a physician by profession and by heart, so we had a lot of technical knowledge, a lot of scientific backgrounds, and a lot of diagrams, and probably some things which were not as easily understandable, but really showed how she's professional in what she does and how her company has made itself a reputable one and a knowledgeable one in the segment of electric propulsion, not only for commercial vessels or ferries, but for different applications as well. So we had an example of a party boat on the river, which was using electric propulsion. And there was also several projects for national parks within Croatia. So overall, it was a great session to start the day. And then we moved from sustainability to finance. Sometimes interlinked topics, but sometimes not. In this case, it was a great follow-up because the next presentation was by Jelka Brandt, the CEO of Savineri, which is the Google Maps for boats, as they like to say. And quite frankly, it makes it easy to understand also what Jelka explained in his presentation on how they used angel investors to elevate their brand and their company, but also to make a business. So there are several opportunities if you're a startup nowadays, how to attract and obtain finance. What Jelka taught us is that nobody actually gives you money, which is quite easily understandable. It's just that you are selling a piece of your company or of your idea or IP. And basically there are several options from VCs, angel investors, grants, typical traditional loans from a bank. But this presentation focused on angel investors and showcased how something like crowdfunding can be used in the boating industry, despite the industry being quite traditional and crowdfunding and angel investors per se being a more innovative concept. After that, it was time for a nice coffee break so people can recharge and relax a bit. And after the coffee break at 11:35, we started such an engaging and amazing panel discussion. Words cannot even describe how good it was. I had on stage with me Dr. Gonca Aslan from Asmira Marine, Michelle Durkin, the Global Marketing Manager at Yanmar Marine International, Laurie Loubier, Vice President of Marketing at Dometic, and Monica Fonseca, Sales Director in Yachting. And the panel discussion was so fruitful. We explored everything from their backgrounds in the industry, what formed them, what are the most important takeaways for the conference, and which experience made them love, stay, and progress in this industry. It was interesting because you got some really hands-on advice. For instance, where Laurie mentioned how she has been for 27 years with Dometic, and that the one thing that makes you respected with your team is showing that no job is big enough or no job is small enough, because she gets every day on the booth with her team and does the work. And other panelists also shared several similar takeaways, so it was really good to hear some hands-on and tangible advice in this world that is now being filled with a lot of digital things which can be perceived maybe somewhere in the virtual and cyber mind, but not a lot of things are to be felt nowadays. So the panel discussion was a great success, and we ended up wrapping it all up with how it's supposed to be, and that's with new generations and with new insights. And the presentation by Dr. Tamara Alexandra Pabianic and her colleague Arno Kurifard from the Center of Technology Transfer. They're not only engaged in several projects of the EU, but also now developing a special hub where academia will be able to collaborate with the boating industry and pursue innovation in several segments and with different stakeholders. It was a very interesting concept because it can facilitate collaboration between different stakeholders in the industry. And it was a perfect wrap-up of the conference. What I also would like to mention is my closing speech, and that's something I get often. So more often than not, when I was talking to people about this year's event, they said, oh, it's a feministic conference. And I said, no, it's a conference that promotes and empowers women leaders in the boating industry, but also joins men who support them, because we all need one another. And I wrapped it up with a quote from the book, The Confidence Code. Actually, The Confidence Code has been written by two ladies, but the quote is by a neuroscientist. And it went somewhat in the lines that women have more of white matter in the brain, while men have more of gray matter. And gray matter makes you more executive, more taking upon actions, while white matter makes you analyze and brainstorm more. The thing is that no matter what type of brain matter a woman or a man has, we're all ending up at the same spot. And that's basically the whole point of inclusivity in the industry and our work and our initiative, is that we all end up being in the same spot. We can take different routes, and it's quite good that we do so. It's really needed that we take different routes, because we explore different avenues and we're being more proactive and even reactive. And that's how innovation and new ideas are born, because we take different routes and we explore. However, it's needed that we have each other and that we support each other in this process. And what we also did is we announced 3 new project tiers, and depending on the stage of launch, I will now start with the first one, and that's the mentorship program. So I'm very happy to announce that we partnered with Women Offshore, which is a US-based organization, and on the conference was Liz Schmidt, the director of the organization, with us. And with the courtesy, they provided us their mentorship program, so we collaborate together on a program of Mentory Loop, where anyone in the Women in Nautica community can for free register, either as a mentor or as a mentee. It depends what you're looking for and seeking in life at the moment. And you get into a 9-month program. You're linked with your mentee or mentor, depending on your capabilities, your wishes, and your experience. And you have a structured program which helps you excel in your career and also make new connections, but also friends. Secondly, we are starting as of December 2025. There will be 1 ambassador per country at the time being, and applications are open. There will be several benefits from ambassadors, from behind-the-scenes content, a certificate, the joining of a global network, and entry tickets for conferences, much more. But whoever is interested, feel free to DM me or Women in Nautica, or email us simply with the words Ambassador Kit, and we will send you the kit and let you know how to be part of this global and growing movement. And last but not least, a concept which is still in development and to be discussed is the Women in Nautica retreat. And that's basically it. And it's a lot. So we started the conference last year. In December 2024, we started with the podcast. So 3 project years in 2024, 3 project years in 2025. And now it's time to just grow and elevate these and make the most out of our network and showcase that it's time to get on board with Women in Nautica. And when people ask me how they can support our work, so apart from sponsoring a podcast episode, which you're listening to at the moment, or engage in some conference packages, you can also join us in our ambassadorship program, but feel free to email us or DM us with any insights regarding some topics which you'd like to hear in the following podcast episode, or what presentation you would like to see in the conference, or if you can suggest a panelist or a presenter. So in a tangible or intangible way, you can support the Women in Nautica work, and we will be happy to hear your thoughts. So at the time being, this is it for the last episode of the year. I hope you enjoy this very short but sweet recap of our November and December. We already started working on the concept for 2026, which will be on 3rd of December, which is, if I'm not mistaken, exactly in 1 year of the recording of this episode. So that's fun. And I wish everyone who's listening to this happy holidays. If you have been traveling a lot and are tired, I hope you booked a holiday. I sincerely do. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And may 2026 bring you a lot of success, a lot of new connections, new creations, new opportunities, and just fresh energy to seize the year. You can meet me at Wood Düsseldorf. I'll be there at the beginning of the show. So see you there. Once again, all the best from Ana Čalić, the founder of Women in Nautica, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you soon.